Okay, so let me just introduce my guest for the morning. Dr. Rashid Pelpo is a member of parliament for Wa Central. Is it Wa Central?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much and thanks for passing through. He's also the Minister of the Presidency responsible for the PPPs. And talking about the PPPs, they also are involved in signing or negotiating for some of those power purchasing agreements. Are you, usually?
No, I don't negotiate.
No, not really. Not really. Sorry for giving you another job description that is not part of it.
But I encourage it.
You encourage it. All right. And Kingsley Abuajijedu, somebody I like very much because he's very eloquent, knows many of the subjects that we always talk about, and he's a member of parliament for Bibiani Anriaso Bekwai. He's a member of the MPP, though, I have to state that. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
All right. So now let's speak on this very subject. The West African Gas Pipeline, WAPCO, they apparently organize a press conference. Doesn't happen often, does it? Especially addressed by an ex-Petroleum managing director and saying that, well, apparently government, or if not government, indirectly, the VRA owes them. And it's to the tune of over $100 million US, and they have to be paid. At the same time, too, even though they are just a transporter, for which we negotiated at 5 cents per kilowatt, or whatever it is that we're one of it, we also have to pay NGAS. It is the Nigerian company that is giving us the gas that we use in powering the various power plants that we have. We call them power generating plants, so to speak. And they are saying they have given us the ultimatum. Today is Thursday, I believe, so midnight today. If we don't tend to negotiate or pay by that very time, it means that from midnight, please, if your fans are on, they'll be off. If you have generators, please put them on automatic standby. I have to ask you, sir, since you're in government, sometimes a lot of the pressure is on you, and you get to be asked questions by your constituents and those you tend to meet. How serious is the issue? I'm sure you have asked a lot of information about it, haven't you?
Which issue?
On the subject of how we owe WAPCO, NEV and gas, and how we have to resolve it.
Well, it's very normal for utility services like these, which are of public nature, to owe their creditors. The problem here is because of the threat to cut us off, or else debt is not a strange phenomenon in our body politic and in our economic arrangements. What happens is that in dealing with a public which is not too satisfied about increases in utility bills, government would normally have to agree to subsidize at all times, and especially in situations where the utility services itself is unable to collect all the tariffs. There is a necessity for us to subsidize some of the products, and if government is unable to do all that, then it means that the gap, that viability gap, will always be debt on governments. So we've been accumulating debt and paying debt. We do so with petroleum, we do so with power. And so it's just one of those kinds of things. And I believe we've been overcoming them. This is also something we will overcome very soon, even though it's something that is very threatening to the very core of our supply of power. Yeah, I think that, but one thing I can mention is that Mr. Jomina, the ECG boss, has been doing well. Let me tell you one story. I was just listening to GBC Unique Radio. Somebody said that he has been calling them to go and to come and put a meter in his house because he doesn't pay bill for over a year and nobody's coming. It's different. It's a very directly, inversely related to what happened to me. In my situation, I went there to tell them that I get embarrassed all the time when bills come and I have to send it to government and nobody is paying. And it keeps accumulating. When I see the bill, I get frightened. So I want the meter to be a prepaid meter. So
you pay yourself?
I'll be compelled to go and pay. When I said it, the following day, they brought the meter and they didn't spend 24 hours. Mr. Jomina ordered that the meter should be changed.
Well, you're a government official or you're a high-ranking person, so
I pay now, but now I pay so much that I just wonder how much they were losing, because for every week I pay about 100 Ghana cedis to sustain my electricity, So it's something we have to consciously do. We have to ensure that we support the utility services to be able to pay their bills, so we don't accumulate debts and turn around to complain and blame them for what is happening.
It's an interesting scenario that he gives, because the largest debtor to the ECG is government. I'm not necessarily talking about this government. I'm talking about the governance structure, so to speak. MMDAs, MDAs, and things like that, to the tune of some $500 million US. As far as we're concerned, that's as serious as it gets. Yeah. But to the point where the press conference is organized, and then Walter Perez, who is the managing director of WAPCO, says, well, the president has been intervening, and so he's very much happy about it. But when he's not seeing an end in sight, he says that, well, while the president may be trying, if he's not able to do that, and I'm quoting him, things really fall apart. And he says that the president needs to make tough calls, because leaders are paid to make tough calls.
Right. Let me say a very good morning to all your viewers all over the world, especially people watching me from Western region, Western North, and BBN and Subekwai in particular. Especially a good morning to them. You see, it's sad that a country that otherwise had very serious prospects should find itself in such a mess. Today is one creditor or the other chasing us for payment. And yesterday when this news broke, some of us were even more sad. That, whoa, look, what is happening? And my senior here seemed to blame it on our inability as normal consumers to pay for economic rate for the utility prices. But I think that begs the question. Like you rightly said, we live in a country where government finds money to do all other things except the essential ones. Now, we owe them just about 180 million, round it up to about $200 million, for which I believe, unless cool heads prevail, unless the Nigerian authorities come in and then try to give us a little bit of some magnanimity, otherwise we are going to be in shit. In court, because by midnight, what can we do from now? From now to midnight is less than 18.
VRA officials and Ministry of Energy officials have gone there. So
no, but the thing is, I thought the delegation was going to be led by the president. I don't know.
Why should the president lead a delegation?
Well, that is what the man was actually complaining about. Now look, this is not like, I was sad when I heard in the news that, was it last week, the Minister for Power, when he was confronted by a radio station, he said he was not aware of the debt. And this is something that cannot be hidden. He said he was not aware of the debt. And the MD is saying that he has brought it, in fact, it has gone to the highest level. If the presidency is aware of the debt, nothing is being done. We sit down and wait till we are pushed against the wall before we try to act. For Christ's sake, what can we do within the next 18 hours to forestall this problem? And can you imagine what will bring, the loss that the country will suffer if the already struggling power sector should suffer or should be without 400 megawatts of...
Mr. Jedu, you don't believe that NGAS and WAPCO will just shut off, would they? Perhaps they just want to have compelling reasons why we need to pay.
My brother, I don't think I would doubt them. Because for a private sector person to come out and hold a press conference and say something, I have worked in the private sector before, I've worked in a multinational before, they don't care about the repercussions on your election fortunes or your standing with your people. They are looking for their money. And he says that not only is the end guy suffering, but the parent company is even feeling the pinch. So I personally do not have any doubt at all that they can go ahead with their trade. I'm not praying for that. And that is why I thought that at least the president would take time off his schedule and go lead this delegation? Because sometimes, you see, in our country, let's say in that some of the messages are better delivered by the linguist, but others are better delivered.
How is it said? In tree.
Sir, simple harness, Chiamiano, a bohon, so harness or mine in Ancasano. This one is so mine in Ancasano.
To go and meet who? If he goes, he will go and meet who?
But who are they going to negotiate with?
You want him to go and meet somebody other than the president of Nigeria?
No, but that is what I'm saying. That if he should go to Nigeria, talk to the president for him to intervene, after all, that company is operating in Nigeria. Well, that can bring us a little bit of mercy. And then they can give us time. I don't see them.
All right.
Let me, just a quick point. Yesterday, I heard Dr. Lokumbobe suggesting that if we are able to fly about 3 million to pay footballers for them to play for the country, I think it is about time. Now, thankfully,
I don't think he meant it in that way.
No, exactly. But now,
you're saying that we should just find the cash.
That's all. Because now, thankfully, we have money coming from the 1 billion euro bond. This is a matter of urgency. I think whatever it is, we have to at least borrow some money. In accounting, we have something called environment. We can get some temporary money from there to go and meet them halfway. We might not be able to raise the 200 million to pay them. But if we're able to pay them halfway, in order that they will not go ahead with their threat, that will do a lot of good for the country.
We know that this is an issue that has gripped the nation. It is also an issue that government seriously is taking cognizance of and has sent emissaries to make sure that as we get to Nigeria, we do the right negotiations. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to take the president there to do the negotiation, Mr. Abajije. In diplomatic circles, you don't expect the president to go meet a managing director of a company.
No, the president will go and meet his
But we have on the line Ishmael Ajekum. He is with KITE, and KITE is involved in a number of agencies, a number of activities, and also they do a lot of research, especially in the energy sector, and helping solve and helping companies come out with other means sustainably of generating energy. And Ishmael Jakumpini is Executive Director of KITE, and thanks for joining me this morning. Did we see this coming, that we're owing even the transporters and those that are giving us the gas to the point that now they even would have to say they want to shut us down?
Good morning, Roland, and good morning to your viewers. Yeah, it's long been coming, Roland, because if you look at the financial situation of most of our public utilities, and we've all known ECG's indebtedness is legendary, and because of that, it's also affecting all the other players. And as a result, it's been coming, and if you look at the World Bank report in 2013, it talked about our inability to even pay some of these, the cost of fuel supply and things like that. So it has been coming, and it will continue to persist unless we deal with this problem ruthlessly once and for all.
Now, to the point that we owe, as a state, we owe the ECG or even the utility companies tune of $500 million. How did we get here? Is it that we don't pay, or we keep piling up whatever the bill is, and we're not just defraying the cost, so to speak?
Exactly the case. You see, I think if you look at most of these state agencies, until recently that they were told to pick up their own utility bills, they were all relying on subventions from government. So government, they paid their utility bills through the subventions that they were getting from government. And we all know that most of these subventions are not released on time, and even if they are released, they only get fraction of those amounts. So they tend to spend those money on things that they think they cannot have on credit or have for free. So it's just like you, district assembly. As you speak right now, the district assembly, the common fund hasn't gone, I think, for like 3 or 4 quarters now, or 3 quarters. What it means is that if ECG wouldn't disconnect them, that wouldn't be top on their priority list in terms of what to pay. So successive years, we see subventions going into these state institutions not being adequate, and because of that, they tend to put some of their bills on hold. And electricity, because it's also state-owned, tends to be one of those. And go to the universities, where some of the universities are borrowing to pay their lecturers so that they keep them quiet and they won't go on strike. They won't borrow money to go and pay ECG, because it's government owned, and government should be able to so you know, to disconnect maybe University of Ghana or Kenya for that matter. So yes, that the state institutions were actually depending on subventions from government to be able to pay their utility bills. Those subventions never went or hasn't been forthcoming, and recently they were told to find their own money to pay. So they are able to pay. They will be able to pay the recurrent cost, but the utilities are also saying that clear the backlog for us as well. So that's the situation. And then you have one of the biggest debtors of ECG is the Ghana Water Company, because they also consume a lot of electricity in pumping the water to our homes. Okay, and then Ghana Water Company also tell you that another government institution is also owing me. That's the reason why I haven't been able to pay ECG. So it's this vicious circle of a never-ending problem that we find ourselves in.
Okay, just be on the line because we'll take a last round on this very subject, and then we'll be with you, and then we'll wrap up with them. Now, Dr. Popo, as far as we're concerned, we need to. It's a systemic problem that is not because it's been generated in the last whether it's 3.5 years or 4 years, or it's something that's part of our structure, and we need to change it. Dr. Popo, what do you make of it?
I think so. It's a systemic problem, and it's been with us for a very long time. That's why in just discussing and talking about how to go and meet them and talk is just scratching the surface. It's much deeper than that. It's about an establishment that does not feel that they have to pay bills. It's about a people that feel that increases in utilities is a crime against them and that they will fight it. So it's about time we begin to recognize the need for us to pay for what we use, and for government institutions to also recognize the need to pay for what they use, to factor it in their budget and to be able to pay for it. So it's a whole combination of challenges, like ECG tells you we can pay that bills if water company, if the ministries and other institutions can pay their bills, then we will pay. Then the other institutions tell them that it's part of our budget, how to secure it is a problem. This month, this quarter, we are unable to secure it. So they are waiting for the next quarter. And it piles up, and eventually they are unable to pay. When the money comes, they utilize this for another term. Or when the year ends, the money goes back to government chest, and it's not going to be part of their budget again. So we need to work on that and ensure that we solve that problem. So monies flow from the people who utilize their services to the ECG. As I said, as minister in charge of private sector, I visited the various installations when these things were happening. And when I stopped at the ECG, they told me their challenges. They said, look, we are willing to work. We are modernizing our systems. Mr. Jomina was very clear, and he said, the only problem we have is that people are not paying, and we cannot cut them off. So if a private sector person is coming in to intervene and to say, look, this is about our profit, it's about our money, we will cut you off if you don't pay, or else we can't pay for our gas, then it might do well. Many people would not like to hear this. They'll say we are selling out another government institution, another state institution. The pride of ownership of our institutions still are fascinating us.
But what you're saying is a solution that could be homegrown. We could have done it ourselves, right? Because we'll need a certain policy commitment, and that will involve strict implementation. For example, if you're a minister, you'll have to pay your own bill.
Yeah.
If, let's say, you're an agency, you know that you have to use and monitor the way you use power based on how much you can pay. Is that not the sense of direction you're going?
Yeah, that is it. That is it. The policy is homegrown. The policy about ensuring that we pay, remember, it was President Mahamad's campaign message he was sending to everybody, that his ministers would pay for their own utility bills, and that he would make sure that utility bills don't pile up, because people must be willing to pay for it. It's just that the system, as you are saying, is very bureaucratic and very, very difficult to bend. And so when decisions are taken, it goes through the pipeline, and by the time it materializes, it takes a very long time. So I believe that with the new thinking coming up and with the new challenge facing all Ghanaians, we would now be willing to cooperate with the utility providers to do the right thing.
It's all about cash. The point is, we have to come to a point in time and say we need to pay realistic tariffs, as if we're already not paying realistic tariffs because we're told we're not.
You see, I get worried about some of these things. If indeed it was the president's campaign promise, if indeed it's a policy, how far has he gone to ensure the implementation of that policy? Because you ask educational institutions, health institutions to pay their own bills. Fair enough. But how do they get money to pay their own bills? Educational institutions are supposed to charge more fees. Now almost every course at the university is a fee-paying course. That is not even enough for them to, but even the salary that you are supposed to bear, you don't bear it. So they use this internally generated fund to pay their professors and other lecturers. So they don't have anything left to pay the utility bills. You go to the hospitals, health insurance that is supposed to be their main source of finance to be able to pay these bills are not paid. So 1 year in arrears, they don't have money to pay. Can you imagine? Recently, a hospital in my constituency was cut off, and they had to run around trying to mobilize money to pay just to restore power. So my point is that yes, when you put out a policy, you have to ensure full implementation and realize the objectives. Otherwise, you must be joking.
Okay.
If you say people should pay their own bill, and what you are going to give them to be able to pay their own bills, you don't give them, how do they pay?
All right.
Subvention that you were talking about, how many of the MDAs have gotten their subvention even up to first quarter of this year? They haven't gotten it. So how do they pay the bill? They don't generate any funds. Of course, some agencies have an IGF. But what about the ministries, mainstream ministries? You and I know they don't have any source of funds apart from government subvention. And if the subvention doesn't come, how do they pay the bill? Are we going to cut them off? Because can you imagine you go to Ministry of Health, you go to Ministry of Finance, and there's write-off because they don't have money to pay their bill. How will the government function? So if we are going to have a policy like that, let's think through it, let's look at the implementation, and then do it effectively so that we achieve the objectives.
Ishmael.
Hi, Roland.
Now, my last question to you before I let you go. How do we then resolve this in the medium to long term? Because I know we can't resolve this next year, thereabout. Because let's just present these scenarios. We want to make sure that we collect the right tariffs. We also want to make sure that we even collect the revenue based on consumption. Okay, but also we want to make sure that the various ministries and agencies that do not generate themselves also will have to be self-sufficient enough to be paying. And so we don't say that, well, ECG and water company is owed. How do we go about this?
Roland, I think there has to be a very drastic attitudinal change and also change in our perception. Electricity or energy is no longer cheap. It is no longer a social good. It's a serious economic good. And we now know the full implication of not having reliable energy for such a very long time. So each and every one of us need to make sure that when you are drawing your budget for the month, your energy bill, just as you don't allow your phone credits to run out and you are always topping up, let's make provisions to pay for utility bills. But let me backtrack a bit very quickly on to add something to the other panelists or discussers. You see, the government is not able to crack the whip because the government knows that it has a part to play in all this. Okay, running away from the thing that go pay your own utility bill, they know very well that some of them are going to be disconnected because some of these institutions are actually relying on subventions of the government. So, I mean, the way forward in terms of the collection is the prepaid meters that they start bringing in. So, if you don't top it up, you don't have any power, except that there are certain sensitive and strategic institutions that you cannot put them on prepaid metering, like the hospitals and things like that. So there has to be a strict discipline as to how those people can still be on credit meters and still honor their obligations. So that's on the revenue collection side. Of course, ECG's own inefficiencies, some of the commercial, the non-technical losses, which we can control. Even the technical one, we should be able to bring it within industry standards. But for the non-technical losses, the commercial losses, that's where QRC comes in. They always give them a benchmark. They give them a target to meet. So they will tell you that maybe collect 95% of your revenue. If you don't meet that, they use that against you in the next tariff review. Okay, so those also have to be stringent enough so that ECG has a motivation to be able to collect all the money. The problem, and we all keep looking at ECG, BRA doesn't go about collecting money from anybody. I'm sure if BRA were to be collecting money from any users, they would have faced the same problem that go look at NETCO. It's not as if their collection rate is any better. So ECG appears to be, carrying all the load, the brunt of most of the people that are using electricity in Ghana. So in a way, we probably will have to also sympathize with them. But there are a lot of things going on in the system. ECG's own workers, some of them will come to you. There's somebody who actually came to my house and told my wife that my bill is going up. You can help me do something about it. And this is somebody who's been contracted to actually read meters.
Okay.
So we need to deal with all of that. But the bigger picture is that we have to make sure that we try as much as possible to clear all debt so that the sector can start on a clean sheet, and then we can begin to hold people responsible.
All right.
Let's clear the debt and make sure that nobody piles them up again.
All right, thank you very much. Executive Director of KITE, Ishmael Ejekumhene, speaking to us on the subject. We hope that we'll do something about it, though, Dr. Rashid Popo.